wise when he is silent. I love that text, but I never live by it. That's the problem. Okay, well, we're going to take a look at dinosaurs because dinosaurs are a very cool subject. And in the Advent, there's been some misunderstanding on some of this. So we wanted to clarify things and get it all clear along with Ellen White quotes and so on. All right, so before we begin, let's ask God to be with us. Heavenly Father, we are going to now look at one of the most amazing line of animals ever. And we pray that you be with us to help us understand them best in terms of prophecy, in scripture, and in science. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. I hope you had good lunches. I hope they're not so good that you start to, you go, as my father-in-law, who was a medical doctor and loved big words, used them whenever he said, I hope you don't experience postprandial torpor. I just love that. Postprandial torpor. Okay, here we go. Dragons and dinosaurs. Did you know the Bible mentions that there is such a thing as a dragon? So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan who deceives the whole world. When you think of the word dragon, what's the image that pops up? Possibly, yeah, something like that, right? Kind of pointy and, and fire-breathing and all that. And guess what? That's not what the word means. The original Greek word, certainly in the time that John wrote Revelation, meant simply large reptile. Large reptile. Now, that's really important because that's going to work in with some of our stuff later. Okay? Large reptile. Let's keep going. So what did they think when they first found the first dinosaur bones? What did they think about them? This is the earliest mention that we think of a dinosaur. Certainly, it's the earliest scientist that wrote something. This is Robert Plot of Oxford in England. They found a bone. He wrote a paper about it, but he thought it was from an elephant from Roman days when elephants were by Romans taken to England. Now, this is about the kind of bone that they found and was writing about it. And this is a dinosaur bone. You can come up a little later and take a look. So he wrote that paper and he said it was an elephant, but he was wrong. Sometimes scientists are wrong. Okay, well, now this is a pastor writing about some footprints in Connecticut that he saw. Footprints of dinosaurs, but he thought, because they didn't know about dinosaurs yet, he thought they were bird footprints. This is from the same general area. So lots of these bird footprints around town, he thought. And guess what? No, they were dinosaur footprints. And as I like to add, sometimes pastors are wrong. Incidentally, I had a whole lot of fun talking with your pastors coming up to this weekend. He's got a lot of energy. Have you noticed? So anyway, it's like, oh, Pastor, yeah, no, I'm very happy. Thanks for the invite. Well, I was, okay. Are you familiar with that? He had a lot to say. He was very energetic. He sounds fun, frankly. So, okay, moving on. Yeah. They were in stone, yes, just like that one I'm showing you there. That's been cut out of stone. Our early 1800s discoveries in England included, for instance, this tooth found by Dr. Mantell. He showed it to some friends because he couldn't figure out what it was. And his friends told him, well, I'll tell you what it looks like, but it can't be that. Well, what does it look like? An iguana tooth, except it's 20 times too big. Okay? And that led to the discovery of and description of the iguanodon, or iguana tooth dinosaur. That's the earliest rendition, basically, of a dinosaur. I think it's kind of funny looking. But eventually they found more bones, and it looks more like this now. So, and they also found what they called a megalosaurus jaw with a tooth, and that's an early rendering of megalosaurus. This is in England, right? So look at the funny look to that. So the earliest, this is where we get the name dinosaur, and I like to point out to various groups that it was a Christian that came up with the name. Sir Richard Owen, a British anatomist, came up with the name based on two words, dinos and sauros, which means awesome lizard. So, yeah, and I guess so. And incidentally, anytime you have a question, you go ahead and raise your hand and we'll address it. The Crystal Ice Palace exhibition in Great Britain in 1851 put these animals in a kind of a cement kind of a manufactured shape and put them out among the people. One of the first public displays of what might have been dinosaurs. But this is the most famous, I think this is one of the key events in the history of dinosaurs, shall we say. And this is Dr. Joseph Leidy of Philadelphia. He was a scientist in Philadelphia that had a museum, an institute. And he heard about a woman who had a property over in New Jersey, just over the state border. And in her backyard, they were finding these big bones. And he asked for permission to get them, dig them up, and assemble them, which he did in his museum. And in 1868, they were finally put on display publicly. He didn't have a skull. He made one out of paper mache, imagined what it might look like, and put it on display. Folks, this is the world's first specimen, dinosaur skeleton put on public display. And it was a sensation. Now, this museum was in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is in America. They figured out they could sell tickets. And so, leave it to Americans. So, what this had the effect of was getting all the other big museums on the East Coast to say, hey, we need to get some of these too. Where do you go get them? And so, yeah, this is what the dinosaur apparently looked like. They started to hire hunters, dinosaur hunters, and they were making the news. And they'd go out and do things that would be totally illegal today. But they went and did dig up wherever they could find bones, in Colorado and Montana, Alberta, Canada, mainly along the western side of the Rocky Mountains. And they brought them back to those museums, and they all found out they could sell tickets. So, in fact, Europe figured it out too. They were finding iguanodons in Belgium and started putting them on display. And American dinosaurs even made the tour, and this is a giant dinosaur making the tour in the Louvre in Paris. So about the turn of the century. Now, understand that up to this point, of course, we had one in the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, 1905, and put on something they called a brontosaurus. Now, people came from all around the world and took a look at this specimen and say, this is a beautiful specimen. Are you sure about the head? Turned out they had the wrong head on the dinosaur. They had the head of one and a body of another and put it together and called a brontosaurus. Now, if you really want to get into a really exciting discussion with a dinosaur nerd, and they are out there, ask him for his opinion. Do you think there is such a thing as a brontosaurus? He will have an opinion, or she will have an opinion. Anyway, Apatosaurus and Camarasaurus together. Yeah, now at this museum they had this picture, this painting on the wall, and it got people to imagine what kind of world would this be with these bus-sized dinosaurs walking around. It's very hard to imagine. And people were trying to, incidentally, you know what they were saying to creationists, don't you? Evolutionists were coming along and saying, looks like Darwin is right? Incidentally, where in the Bible do you see this, huh? So, and we had a couple of answers usually, something anywhere from, where does the Bible have this, or what do you think about this? Is anywhere from, I don't know, to, I think the devil put those bones in the ground and made us, not believe the Bible, stuff like that. And incidentally, I'm very familiar with what the school teacher was leading out in the Sabbath school said today about when he was in school, you couldn't talk about dinosaurs. I've had two people at the North Pacific Union Conference office tell me the same thing. When they were in Adventist school, you couldn't talk about dinosaurs. Or dinosaurs were fake, or the devil put them in the ground to confuse us about Genesis, or stuff like that. And it's a shame, because obviously they were around, and we'll talk about that. So, for a while, for 50 years of discovering dinosaurs, 60 years, pretty much the thing to think about was, look how big they were, and let's not get stepped on, if we were around them. That was the scariest thing, because when they looked at their teeth, their teeth would be like this. This is a Camarasaurus tooth. This is, how is this? Is spoon-shaped, and it's clearly a vegetarian dinosaur. It's not eating meat at all. So most all the dinosaurs, in fact, about 90% of dinosaurs are vegetarian. But anyway, so don't get stepped on, right? Look how big. But then something happened. Then about 1905, they found something with teeth, and I mean serious teeth. This was Henry Osborn's discovery in Wyoming. I've been down the rocky road, and somebody was driving and knew the area, and he said, "Stan, you see that hill up ahead?" Yeah, that's where Osborn found it. The first Tyrannosaurus rex. And boy, if you don't think that didn't change the image of dinosaurs right away. Suddenly it was a matter of not only don't get stepped on, don't get munched or something, right? I'm going to talk just briefly about T-Rexes for a minute because people seem to be fixated on T-Rexes. We know what they ate, among other things. We know they ate Triceratops, and how would we know that? Well, there's teeth marks on bones, yes. But they found one T-Rex with, in the skeleton, in the stomach area, still some of his lunch was in there, and some bits and pieces, and included bones of a Triceratops. So they're quite sure of that. But you know what it doesn't answer the big question of? And let's see if I got it there. Was T-Rex a predator or a scavenger? Why would you think that maybe he wouldn't have made a very good predator? Yeah, those little tiny arms, right? I mean, how could they catch anything? And also, just look at the bulk of its body. It doesn't look like it's particularly fast. Powerful, yes, but fast, no. So, I mean, if it eats Triceratops, could have been a dead one. You know, could have been. That doesn't answer the question. So, I like this dinosaur because he's smiling. He's friendly. Anyway, take a look at that picture on the right there. See that little insert there? That has the bones of a T-Rex and a Triceratops, deposited together like that and preserved. What they've noticed was the Triceratops has teeth marks on its bones, and the T-Rex has broken ribs. What we think happened was the flood was coming up the hill, and these two animals were trying to get away from the rising water and ended up in the same place a little too close to each other, and frankly started, fighting before they got covered up in the same place and preserved in the same place. It's pretty hard to explain it any other way, really, how you could get buried in mud. Yeah, anyway, so T-Rex. So we do have a footprint or two, not too many, but a couple that are certainly T-Rex footprints. And there was one that's found in a secret place in New Mexico. And it is 9 inches deep. So that's pretty heavy animal. So that T-Rex was the best ever found for years and years. That one right there, it's on display in Hill City, South Dakota. And in the Black Hills, and incidentally, its name was Stan. Yeah, it was. So it's Stan, yeah. Incidentally, we don't know any genders about dinosaurs. They have not figured out yet how to tell from the skeletons whether it's male or female. Don't know. But they do have names sometimes based on who found them. So anyway, this T-Rex was the best ever found at 40% complete. 40% complete. This kind of helps you with a question that you might be surprised at the answer of. How many bones of an animal do you have to have before science technically calls it a skeleton? 10% is correct. How did you know that? Oh, good for you. Boy. I'm going to have to gather myself together on this because no one has ever shouted out the answer that quick. Good for you. Yes. Boy, you sure have smart people here in Pendleton. Anyway, 40% was the best one they'd ever found, the most complete, and you might be surprised. Why that's important is when you see on the news sometimes, new dinosaur was discovered in such and such a place, and they'll always say something like, and boy, does this answer all the questions we've ever had about, boy, does it fill in every gap and every, kind of thing. It's just a wow. And then you find out later it was like a hip bone and a part of a leg and, a little bit of this, and they do a lot of imagination there. Anyway, 40%. But then they found a dinosaur named Sue. I'm glad you caught that. And she was found in 1990 in South Dakota, and she was 90% complete. And they sold her to there was a big fight over who owned her after they found it, because they knew they had something. And the people who owned the property won, not the people who discovered it. Anyway, the Field Museum in Chicago is where she is now. And she is the star of the show there, believe me. And you know what? They sell tickets to go see Sue. There's Sue right there today. And she is beautiful, 90% complete. But I hate to burst a bubble here on this. Whenever you see a skeleton, it's almost always the replica cast of it, not the real deal. Almost always. A couple of reasons. Number one, they're heavy. The bones are pretty heavy. They could fall and break. They could fall on a visitor and break the visitor. It wouldn't be good. So they like to keep the real thing available to study and make the others, out of the cast. Now, her skull, when I went there to see her, her skull was in a case on the second. I don't know if you can see that little floor there. That's the second floor. And there was a case up there that actually had a real skull. And when you find a skeleton, the money is in the skull. If you've got a skull, you have got something. And, you get ready to receive a big check. Because skulls are very fragile, very skinny bones, and easily break up. For instance, I went to a rock show, not this kind of rock show, a rock show in Tucson, Arizona, the big annual one. That's the World Gathering of Rocks and Minerals and Fossils. Anyway, go sometime. It's in February. It's a wonderful time to leave the Northwest and go to Arizona. Really good. Someone's got to do it, and I take one for the team, you see. I go every year. But anyway, there was a world-class fossil hunter dealer there, and he had in his case a few bits and pieces of a T-Rex skull. So I bought a couple of pieces of skull, and he says, yeah, they're never in one piece. We just can't, But they had the rest of the dinosaurs, but just tiny pieces, couldn't do anything with it. So, like I say, skulls are very precious. Okay, so moving on. But you know what T-Rex has done for us? There was a T-Rex found in Montana, and they took the bones back to the campus that had provided the students and this teacher, and they found out when they studied the interior of the bones, there was still soft tissue inside. Soft tissue, including flexible vessels, and what sure appeared to be red blood cell stains, which is organic material. That's organic material. Organic material is not supposed to last 65 million years. And that's what that's supposed to be, 65 million years old. In fact, this is a huge discovery. It really says that the bones are thousands of years old, not millions of years. The head of the team was a woman scientist, and she caught all kinds of stuff for her first publication of her work. And you call yourself a scientist, you are a disgrace to your university, they should fire you, you do shoddy work like this, what the creationists are going to do with this, and and stuff like that. And she really took a beating. Where were the women defenders at this time? I don't know. But go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering, how do they know the difference between thousands of years and millions of years?
Okay, I'm getting to it.
Okay.
Be patient. So, that's okay. My wife would wonder because I go this way and this way and this way. So anyway, she heard the criticism and she said there's one or 2 points there. They're right. I could have done something a little better. She went back and redid her research, did it a little more carefully on a couple areas, came out with the same discovery. And now it's somewhat reluctantly accepted. She said a couple things. She said this, and this is a good science statement. Here's a good science statement. She said either there's ways of preserving organic material that we have no concept of whatsoever, or these bones are not as old as we thought. Now, that's a good science statement. Now, what we do is we take this kind of thing, this kind of organic material, and we use their studies, because evolutionists have long been curious to know how long does it take for a bone, a fossil, to lose a protein in it? How long does it take for various different kinds of organic material to be gone and it's just rock? And they've done studies on this, lots of studies. And every single one of them says the absolute longest anything can last in there is like 1 million years. And so we show, according to your study, things disappear in thousands of years. But that's still there. So, you know, it's fun. Because, frankly, age of the Earth is the biggest area we have challenges in. It has to do with decay. But anyway, don't get me on that one. That's another one. So I do a whole lecture on that spotlights age of the Earth. Footprints are fossil evidence. Footprints are, I should tell you something about footprints. There's a place in Texas, in Glen Rose, Texas. Have you heard of this place? Okay, it's famous among Adventists especially, because the guy that first pushed this discovery issue was a man by the name of Burdick, and Burdick was an Adventist. Okay, there has been purported to have been found in Glen Rose, Texas, human footprints on the same rock layer as dinosaur footprints. Now, first of all, understand, I have no problem at all with the idea that dinosaurs and people lived on the earth at the same time before the flood. No problem, no issue there, no axe to grind. I'm just saying that I, along with some very conservative scientists who are creationists, who also don't have a problem with no axe to grind, when they have looked at these footprints that are purported to be human, are skeptical. Now, one of the things that you need to know is this area has long produced dinosaur footprints for tourists, but they've also provided human footprints for tourists, but they've been carved. And they're clearly carved. When I mean clearly carved, I mean too perfect. You cannot put your foot into sand and make an absolute perfect, if you're just walking, it doesn't happen. So they're too perfect to footprints. Most of the time, they're the same size as your and my footprint, which isn't agreeing with our thinking on people being larger. A couple of them are, but those are the ones that really look fake to me. Now, the locals apparently knew how, because there's compression under some of them. And the stuff under them, when they cut aside, it's compression. But the thought is they apparently take dinosaur footprints and that have real compression, and then they carve human footprints over them. Do you follow? And it gives the compression sense. So anyway, whenever I go to other Adventist churches, invariably somebody says, hey, they found in Glen Rose, Texas, human footprints, and there'll be kind of fans about it. I get it. They're supporters. I don't think dinosaurs and humans lived in the same zip code at the time of the flood. I really don't. I don't think they were around each other, but at least not these big ones. But that's just me, and I'll tell you when we get to our second talk about the flood, why even more. The skin of dinosaurs have been preserved with mud that becomes hard rock when the animal got covered up in the flood. When they pop this open, sometimes they see the shape of the skin, the impression of the skin. And when they've done that, they see scales, just like any other reptile. So again, it makes it clear that dinosaurs had scales. Now, I don't know about you, but when I originally heard about dinosaurs laying eggs, of course all lizards, reptiles do that, I thought it must have been about that big. Surely they had to be huge. Well, guess what? Here is a dinosaur egg right here from China. And that's about as big. Don't get much bigger than this. Now, raptor eggs are a little different length. They're longer, but they're a little narrower. So they're like that, kind of, but long. That's as big as they get, which tells you that even the big ones, like this Camarasaurus, even the big guys started off about that size. So wouldn't it be kind of fun to have as a widow baby? So anyway, So, and it answers questions about such things as how about the ark? We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so dinosaur. Yeah, would you like to dig up dinosaurs yourself? You have an opportunity. You don't want to do that? What's the matter with you? Okay, I'm mistaken you for the smarter one of the two. So, yeah, okay. I mean, who doesn't want to dig up dinosaur bones? Okay, yeah, it'd be kind of fun, right? So you can do it. As a volunteer at Southwest Adventist University's dig in northeastern Wyoming every year for the month of June. You can go for 1 day, you can go for 30 days. Up to you, you're a volunteer. Got to pay a little camping fee, but that covers food. And northeast Wyoming, where there's absolutely nothing in sight. It is the most forsaken area of the planet. But anyway, but a world-class dinosaur bone deposit. And this is where you can go and you can dig up bones, and unfortunately you can't keep them. But anyway, you can have the fun of digging up bones. This is my assistant at the union office, this little girl. And she found something, and there I am holding up a rib of an Edmontosaurus, which is a duck-billed dinosaur. And there, in younger days, I'm doing it too, and this is a big rib of a big full-grown hadrosaur. And can you see that little bottle of glue kind of stuff there? That is a super glue type of chemical, and they you put it onto the bone, and it just goes right into the bone, sucks it right up, and becomes very hard, very easy to transport. And but before it gets removed, before we wrap it up into aluminum foil, Dr. Art Chadwick or one of his associates will bring over a GPS ground locating a probe right there, put it on the corner of the dinosaur bone before it's taken out, and eventually take photographs of it and put it into this app right here, this incredible program which lists all the bones as though you remove the dirt and you're looking right down on top of this bone bed. Isn't that amazing? That's cutting edge technology, cutting edge. So anyway, and incidentally, these bone beds are graded, which means that the larger bones are at the bottom, medium, and then the small ones are at the top. You can take a look at this, and you tell me, looking at that picture, what can you not see in the skeleton, in the bones? Oh, I just said it, didn't I? In the bones. You don't see anything connected. You don't see skulls. You don't see connected bones. You see what's called disarticulated bones. So, what could do that? And also, if you look at the edge of the corners of these bones, it looks like there's been a little rubbing, like they've been tumbled a little bit. So what happened to these dinosaurs, they got killed somehow, apparently in water, because their bodies were rolled for some distance on water, and for long enough and far enough to where, frankly, the bodies came apart. And eventually the bones got laid into this lower depression and deposited in about 3 feet of mud and preserved. Now, what does that sound like to you? Sounds like one of the actions of the flood, doesn't it? It's very good evidence for the flood. So they happen to be digging up here this stuff. They go for 1 month, dig up enough bones to study for a year. They come back the next year and do it again. The owner of this ranch that this is on are Christians. They have been for 100 years. It's been in the family that long. They knew they had something there with the bones, but they wanted the bones to be studied by not evolutionists, by creationists. And so God kind of connected them with Southwestern and Dr. Chadwick. And it's a very good, and it's an experience where every year, the North Pacific Union Conference, my department, we sponsor a group of teachers usually, sometimes pastors, and we take students with them, and we go dig up dinosaur bones, and it's pretty cool. Isn't it cool? And they all come back, like, whoa, it's kind of fun. In a couple of cases, at least 2 cases I can think of, a couple of kids are very clearly on their way now to becoming paleontologists. And God needs scientists that are creationists. So that's one of our goals. Anyway, pretty cool, huh? When we look at dinosaur skulls, it's not terribly hard to imagine what they could have looked like. But dinosaurs to bird evolution. Did you know that this is one of the things they think is a slam dunk? I mean, Surely you people understand that dinosaurs evolved into birds. I mean, everybody knows that's true. So we don't look like we're really operating completely when we have some doubts. There's two theories to this. Number one, can you see that very well? Large ground bipeds may have become birds. Now, that'd be like this. These guys. Now, why do you suppose, okay, let me put it this way. What problems do you see in that becoming a bird? Thank you. Everything is correct. Everything is correct. But more specifically, these little arms have got to become the biggest limbs. They've got to become the wings. You got to shrink these big, heavy back legs down. Hey, let's lose this big, long, heavy tail. And generally, let's develop some hollow bones and things like that. There's almost nothing working there. And so they have an alternate theory, and this is their title. This is not mine. Small crocodiles from the trees. So here's the idea. A crocodile-type dinosaur crawled up a tree, saw food out there, jumped out, got it, landed, made babies. Okay, incidentally, that's the game. You got to make babies. All right, so if you have food, you can do that. All right, then after a while, they figured out somehow that if you had flaps between the arms, you could go further and be more successful. Okay, and then it'd be good if you made wings and feathers. Any questions? So large tails, small forearms, large legs, heavy tails, skin folds to become wings, cold-blooded become warm. Incidentally, lungs is a big issue on this. Lungs, a bird's lungs they go every time you're flapping. They're going as they're flapping their wings, whereas a lizard more or less breathes. You know what I mean. You got the idea. Slow. Bumpy scales to feathers. Okay. So here's bumps on the skin of a reptile, and that bump is going to become a follicle that grows out from underneath the skin into a beautifully engineered feather. So that to that. So you see how easy that is, isn't? Why would you be so doubtful of that? Okay, well then let's look at the fossil record. Do they have anything going in the fossil record? Okay, well, you've got the earliest or lowest down fossil of a bird called an Archaeopteryx, which means ancient wing. This was found in Germany in the time of Darwin, and it helped Darwin's theory, frankly, because it's kind of a funny-looking bird. It's got teeth, and it's got claws on the end of the wings. It's got a long, bony tail, but it's certainly got big feathers. So, maybe that was sort of a half lizard, half bird, okay? And let's look at the dinosaur fossil record. So we've got them that low. Okay, good. Oh, flying. Did they become birds? No, they didn't become birds. It was the land dinosaurs that became birds. And incidentally, with dinosaurs, there's two kinds of hips. There's what's called bird hips, and then there's lizard hips. Bird hips, lizard hips. Which do you suppose evolved into birds? Bird hips. Lizard hips. Okay. All right. You got to have faith, my friends. You got to have faith. So land dinosaurs apparently were the one. Okay, but look, you got a gap between there and a gap between there. So there's a few million years. Yeah, maybe one of their kids kind of went this way and then went up into the birds. Okay. Oh, no, wait a minute. No, we found footprints of birds down at this bottom level too, and that's not helpful at all. They're starting off at the same time. What's going on with that? These are bird footprints found in Argentina. And there are clearly bird footprints because it's got the reverse helix, the backward toe. So it's not a lizard, and it's just very random hopping around. And this is what the scientists said about this. It's significant because we find footprints with morphology identical to modern birds. That means shape. In rocks that predate by 55 billion years the first record of true aves. That's birds. So it's significant. It's science talk for we don't have a clue to make sense out of this. Okay, it kind of seems important. That's what he's saying. But what he's saying is that you've got footprints of birds way down below the first fossil we have of a bird. And there's 55 million years in their time frame. So it's kind of hard to explain what those bird footprints are doing down there. Now, I have an explanation. Teacher, how about the waters were rising, the birds were in the air trying to escape it, and the bird just absolutely ran out of gas, landed on the mud, and hopped around, hop, 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 hop. Oh boy, the waters are coming. I got to get out of here. Flew off, and eventually the birds that got fossilized were much higher up in the layers. Doesn't that kind of explain it? Anyway, there you go. So, yeah. Dinosaur evolution by types. When you think of dinosaurs, don't you think about evolution? I mean, okay, now here's this on the left side is deeper in the ground and older, therefore. And supposedly there is an imagined ancestor of all dinosaurs right here. And this would be in what's called the Triassic layer. But up to here, these are the groups of dinosaurs they like to think are fairly different. I even got birds in there. And they're supposedly similar this way, similar this way. So there must be some ancestors. I mean, we got lots of fossils between Triassic and Jurassic and Cretaceous. So there must be some real possible ancestors. Actually, no, we haven't found any dinosaur in the fossils. And again, if you think I'm kidding, here is a dinosaur expert, an evolutionist, saying about the problem. From my reading of the fossil record of dinosaurs, no direct ancestors have been discovered for any species. Alas, my list of dinosaurian ancestors is an empty one. So what's he saying? He's saying dinosaurs show up immediately in the fossil record, just like anything else, just like any other animal, without any ancestors. When you think of dinosaur size, they got pretty big. Titanosaurus is 130 feet long. How long is this building? You're approaching that right here inside. So a pretty good sized animal. It could raise its head up and look into a 5th story window. So how'd you like to be working on your computer at the window, 5th story? Hey! Yeah, pretty big. But guess what? They got small too. They got the smallest as chickens. Got small as chickens. They found a new one not terribly long ago that was turkey size, and I'm waiting for the name to be announced. Turkeyosaurus, maybe. So the point is, size is not the thing. So now I'm going to ask you the very famous question of what's the difference between a dinosaur and a regular reptile or lizard? What's the difference? It's not size. So let's see if anybody here can guess. You got that? You don't have that one. Okay. Yes, what?
The difference is dinosaurs are more alive, modern-day lizards are alive.
Oh, well, okay, one is extinct and the other is alive. That's a reasonable difference. But there's something different in their body shapes. And does anybody know? Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's in the hips. Okay, here we go. The hips are different in lizards because they have lizards have hips that put the legs straight out. Okay, and so they bend at the knee, but they go straight out. So whenever you see a lizard, he's kind of doing this. Whereas a dinosaur has the legs straight down and gets the body off the ground, whether it's 2 or 4-legged. That is the difference. So scientifically, that's the difference. And there you go, a trivia question you can wow your friends with, impress them. So, okay, I'm going to go past this to this. And does the Bible tell us anything about dinosaurs? That would be cool if they did. Well, here's something interesting. God created great sea creatures, Tananim in Hebrew, in Genesis 1, the first week of creation. And it's interesting because the word Tananim, which probably means something like long things, usually means reptiles later on in the Old Testament. But I'll leave that to you. This is the one I want you to see. Look now at Behemoth. And remember I told you about the last chapters of Job are so cool. They're just so neat. Look now at the behemoth, God says to Job, which I made along with you. What does that mean? 6th day of creation. He eats grass like an ox. Whew, vegetarian. Okay. See now, his strength is in his hips, the power is in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. His bones are like beams of bronze. His ribs are like bars of iron. A very powerful animal. He is the first of the ways of God. Now, I was really curious about that last sentence. What does that mean? And scholars were pretty much in agreement. It's not talking chronologically. It's talking about position in the animal kingdom. So it's like this is the alpha of all alphas, the top of the pyramid. It's an amazing, amazing animal. Okay, now, if you have a Bible that's got tiny print at the bottom of the page, on this page it'll say something like, scholars think the behemoth was a, what? Hippopotamus. Now, have you ever seen the tail of a hippopotamus? Does it remind you of a mighty cedar tree? A cedar tree is the biggest tree in the Middle East. And this is doubtful that, okay, and the second choice is elephant. Still kind of that way. So I'm wondering if it's the alpha of all animals, the most amazing animal ever. I'm just wondering if it might be something, there's my hippopotamus, might be something like there's hippopotamus and there's Job for scale. Might it be something like that? An amazing animal with a tail that would remind you of a cedar tree. Because the word there for the verb is sways like a cedar tree. I'll leave that to you to decide and think about. Now, do we as creationists ever believe that any animals evolved? And what's the word evolved mean? Change. Did any animal change? How about that serpent that was tricking Eve? God said to this animal, you are cursed more than all cattle. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust. Now, for this next thought, I want you to think a little bit like a Hebrew. And this will not be easy because you're Greeks. You're all Greeks. It's Greeks as far as I can see in this room. Because when you think of curse and bless, when you think of bless, you say, have a nice day. When you think of curse, that guy cut me off in traffic, or something like that. That's as far as a Greek goes with that. We're shallow. I'm a Greek. A Hebrew has a different concept of blessing and cursing. A blessing makes something better than what it was before. It takes it up a couple steps. In other words, may you have children, or lots of children. But they couldn't before, but now and you have been elevated. You are better than where you were. You've seen lots of examples of that in the Old Testament especially. You see, the ark stayed at Obed-Edom's house, and as long as it was there, his house was being blessed, and everybody in the area knew it. Something tangibly improves when something is blessed. Take it the other direction, something is tangibly worse when it's cursed. Okay? This animal is tangibly worse. God is saying to this animal, you are no longer going to be an attractive animal that's going to be able to tempt Eve. Eve's going to run from you when she sees you next time. I'm going to remove all of that stuff. You're going to be a ground crawler. All right? But then he also adds, you are cursed more than all cattle or all animals. The word cattle there is a kind of a general animal word. You are cursed more than everything else, which means the whole animal kingdom is now going to be less than what it was. Are you with me? Less than what it was. Sin has caused that to happen. So the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence. You see the all flesh reference, all flesh, all flesh, all flesh. This is clearly a reference to the animals as well as people. And that's why God targets animals in the flood like he targets people. Because the same kingdom, the same problem is in each kingdom, the human kingdom and the animal kingdom. This violence has gotten out of control. And take a look at some of these dinosaurs. It sure looks like some of them are ready for combat. I've shown pictures like this to the kids, and they usually know the names, or somebody in the group knows the names. It's funny to me. The Pachycephalosaurus on the right there means bonehead lizard. And he ran into things with his bonehead. Look at Ankylosaurus at the top. I mean, doesn't that look like a walking tank? Does that look like something that would waddle out of the Garden of Eden? No, it doesn't. And this is where Adventist thinking on this is actually helpful. I'm going to get to that when I get to Ellen White's quotes on this. Oh, incidentally, might have been what happened to Dinosaur. Yeah, one more theory. They were on the wrong boat. Incidentally, just briefly, I kind of think meteors are involved with the flood. I think meteorites struck the earth and caused the problems we have because there's at the KT boundary, which is at the top of the dinosaur level, there's a little bit of iridium dust. Iridium dust is very rare metal, and it's found a little bit more in meteorites. Outside of that, yeah, okay. I'll just pass on quickly. Ooh, look at that. The ark with dinosaurs? Maybe. Let's talk about that. Scores of did dinosaurs get on the ark? And traditionally, in the Adventist church, I would get a resounding no. No, they were the devil made or something. They weren't what God made. Let's listen to this a little bit. Be patient with me. Scores of national and tribal legends from all corners of the earth detail human encounters with dragons. Again, the word dragon means large reptile in the ancient use. And I mean, you got Alexander the Great casually mentioning in his memoirs that when I was in India, there was a dragon in a cave, and the locals told me to not harm it because they considered it sacred and just leave it alone. So anyway, that's it. Very casual mention. Marco Polo, some others talk about it in different ways. There are, from China to England, and just about every corner, ancient stories of the days when humans and big lizards were together. Now, it's interesting. We have a big dinosaur bone in our museum, one this big, huge thing. If you ask an evolutionist, why is it that there's only lizard stories, not tigers and lions and bear stories? And they said, well, it's because they'd see these big kind of bones and maybe the ancient people might have imagined those lizards. And I said, where would you get a lizard out of that? Where would you get a lizard with a giant bone like that? Why would you imagine a lizard? The lizards were only annoying little pesty things throughout history, Honey, there's a lizard in the kitchen, will you please get it? That kind of thing. Get it out of here. Nothing scary about a lizard, but why are there these giant lizard stories? I'd like to suggest they are the remnants of the little bit of truth and a lot of, exaggeration in these ancient stories that involve the last dinosaurs. And the dinosaurs are always, in the stories, there's always one. It seems like there's always one. There's never herds or flocks or bunches of them. It's like the last one. And usually in the story, it's the end of the dinosaur, or the dragon, usually. So I'm just thinking that maybe humans hunted them or got rid of them, like we for sure know mammoths and giant sloth and others like that were hunted to extinction. Maybe they were hunted and killed. It's just a thought. So, but interestingly, the Bible says that the wolf and the lamb shall feed together, the lion shall eat straw like an ox. Okay, everybody's vegetarian, that's good. The nursing child shall play by the cobra's hole, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the viper's den. Looks like the reptile world is also restored. The reptile world is restored. So I'm going to put a real scary head on this guy. There he is. There he is. Okay. Now, it says the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He's a deceiver. The dragon's a deceiver. Okay. Revelation 12 is just in front of Revelation 13. And 13 is just in front of, good for you, Revelation 14. You guys are sharp. You guys are sharp. Revelation 12, 13, 14 work toward the end days. And you got the dragon deceiving people. Oh, deceiving them with what things? Lots of things he's deceiving us with, but there's one story he'd like to really deceive us on, and that is that you, God's image, that you are special and have a future, that Jesus died for you because he's going to prepare a place for you, and you're going to live forever if you follow. Oh boy, no, we are accidents in nature. We are mutants. We're walking pond scum. We have no future in that. Yeah, let's deceive the world through that. And what image does he use successfully? I think if a single picture paints 1,000 words, How about the dinosaur image, the dragon image, the big reptile image? Why not use that to suddenly hit people with the idea, dinosaurs, yeah, millions of years, not Genesis. Am I right? I think successful in doing that. What does the devil like to do with the best things God has made? Imitate, mess up, Sabbath, marriage. How about the best line of animals God made? So, anyway. So, what does Ellen White say about some of this stuff? But if there is one sin above another, which called it for the destruction of the race by the flood, okay, if there's one thing that caused the flood, what is it? It was the base crime of amalgamation of man and beast, which defaced the image of God and caused confusion everywhere. Well, now, a quick read of that makes you, what does amalgamation mean? Anybody know? Mixed together. And today, if you're working with metals, an amalgam is a mixture of metals. Okay. So it's the base crime of amalgamation. Some people think, is this man with beast? Some people have said that. The Ellen White estate has made it clear that's not what she was saying. It's man with man and beast with beast. Okay, so mankind and beast. Man's amalgamation defaced the image of God, and beasts cause confusion everywhere. Take a look at this. This is another quote, right? Okay, here. Every species of animal which God had created were preserved in the ark. How many? Every. The confused species, animals, there's some animals that God did not create, which were the result of amalgamation, were destroyed by the flood. That's frankly what I'm thinking about some of these combat-oriented dinosaurs. Did man mix these? Did man breed warrior dinosaurs for the sake of the violence that's only filling their minds? Why not make warriors or entertainers or hunters or something? And some of these dinosaurs sure look like that. Okay, now that's that. But what was the base crime of amalgamation in man that defaced the image of God? And she said it was the thing that triggered the flood, right? If there's one sin above any other, it was this one. So it's going to be in the Bible. So I go to the Bible, Genesis 6, and it says, the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men, that they were fair, and married them, whoever they wanted. Now, what's that talking about? Sons of God are not angels, please. Other churches think that. Sons of God was the godlike line through Seth, the believers. But the others, the daughters of men, were Cain's line. And so they married out of the church. Ellen White makes that clear in other places, that they married into idolatrous families and they lost their way spiritually, married out of the faith. Now, if you think I'm kidding on this, the very next verse after the daughters of men, married the daughters of men, that they were fair and married them, whoever they wanted. The very next line is, God says, I'm done. 120 years is all man has. That's it. So it clearly was a triggering event for God in his view of the flood. So man made some dinosaurs into something ferocious and more warlike, because that's what all he was thinking of doing. Now, but what about the big dinosaurs? Oh, look at this. There were a class of very large animals which perished at the flood. God knew that the strength of man would decrease, and these mammoth animals could not be controlled by feeble man. Now, mammoth means giant, okay, not mammoth elephants. We got elephants, so it's got to be animals larger than elephants, right? So to me, that's talking about these. And these big guys were killed in the flood. So they were removed because of their size. They were too big. And frankly, after the flood, it'd be a while for there'd be food available for these guys anyway. But mankind was getting feeble. We're feeble now. Did you know that? Okay. We're nothing like what we used to be when we lived to be 900 years old. Anyway, so that is it. So I think I've been warned that henceforth, you saw this at the end of the sermon today. So there's a contest between it. So do you have any questions about dinosaurs? So did I answer, and in the Adventist context of there was amalgamation, no question, there was some mixing of animals, confused species, but the ones that God had created might have gotten on the ark, because she said every species made it onto the ark. So I think those may have become the source of dragon stories in all parts of the world, but then they were eliminated, like we've lost a lot of species today. Why are there not fossils of humans? Can you hold that question to the next talk, which is coming up shortly? It's on the flood, because it's my climactic end. all my stories have climactic endings. Yes. Yes. That was I want to say South Carolina, one of the University of South Carolina, one of those Carolina universities, because it was theirs. They got it to study with permission. The thing that's interesting about that is once that was established and accepted as possible, you have got all kinds of other places where people are suddenly saying, hey, we never thought about looking at fossils for organic material. Let's start looking open. Crack, 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 breaking open of stuff. They found, for instance, a Triceratops horn that had preserved soft material in it. And so that stuff is getting around. In Glen Haven, Montana, you know where that is? It's right on the border, the eastern border of Montana on the highway, interstate. Glen Haven has a creation museum right by the freeway. And in there, no, that's not the place. Skip it. It's a good museum. Go see it. Where was it that I saw? It was in ICR in San Diego. There's a museum in San Diego that's a creation museum, and they've got the soft tissue that the guy found in the Triceratops horn, or at least some of it, probably. They have now found at least 3 dozen that I can think of examples of organic material found in fossils that couldn't be there, but are. So yeah, the point is they're finding them all the time. Now they're looking. If you don't think they exist, you don't look for them. Yes.
The Leviathan you described it though, it sounds like a very terrifying animal. Do you think that is
I don't think the Leviathan was on the ark. First of all, it was a sea creature. So sea creatures did not make it on the ark. My best guess on a Leviathan is it was a Nile crocodile. And a couple of things that it says about it is, first of all, it's got skin you can't pierce. And crocodiles are very hard to, their skin is like armor. The second thing, it makes the water boil. If you've ever seen a crocodile with prey, it rolls with it. It rolls, and as it's rolling, it sure looks like the water's boiling where it's rolling. There's a couple of little hints like that I lean toward it. The Leviathan is also symbolic in a place or two elsewhere in the Psalms and things about sort of almost a mythic creature, but just sort of an example of a scary thing. Scary animal, scary force, scary something. But I don't spend a lot of time in Leviathan because I think Behemoth is just a slam dunk. Behemoth is so easy. So Leviathan, there'd be more controversy to, good question. Yes. The other, yes.
if there is,
The other guy.
if they were able to find organic material,
Yeah.
would they have access to their DNA, or is
No, DNA goes immediately. However, frozen mammoths and frozen other animals found in Siberia and Alaska have preserved DNA. So you may hear of Harvard as the one on this. Harvard is trying to beget mammoth babies. So they think they can possibly do it. They have a surrogate mother in mind the species from Sri Lanka, which is Ceylon, the old island off India, has a subspecies of elephants that has the hump in the back like the mammoth did, and they think it's, genetically closest related to it, and they can imagine, yeah, you can see that happening someday maybe. So we might get a mammoth back, but the DNA has been preserved because it was frozen. But when it's not frozen, it's gone very quickly, very quickly. Now, there has been one or two cases, supposedly they found DNA on some of these fossils. I think it's probably something to argue about. So anyway, anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, can I trust you to take a short break? You'll be back? I'm going to talk about what happened to man in the flood and a big climactic thing. All right, go ahead, take a break. Take a couple minutes. Where did my